Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Joe, he's Nick, and you are listening to the Nick and Joe Show. And coming to you live from the Think Radio Broadcast Center in Canada's national capital city. That would be Ottawa, Ontario. And we are here not just locked down, but in the middle of yet another stay-at-home order that nobody is obeying. Forget about all of the exceptions that the government has had to put into the rules, like all of the people that get to go to work, not regular jobs, but, working at restaurants, even though restaurants are closed for in-house dining, they're still open for takeout and that kind of thing. So all of those places are open. I noticed today that dry cleaners were open.
So dry cleaners.
Right. A lot of stores or retail stores are open for curbside delivery. And but, if you happen to be working in an office or you happen to be not one of the exempt businesses, you don't get to work. Your work is shut down. So you're under a stay-at-home order. But what did people do on such beautiful spring days when they don't have to go to work, Nick?
They don't stay home.
I'll tell you what I did yesterday on the way home, because, our work is exempt, so I don't actually have to stay home. I've been able to go into work just about every day during this pandemic for the last year. But setting that aside for a second, so I'm driving home yesterday, and I think, I have to make a couple of phone calls, so I'll just use my car phone. And I'm looking for a comfortable place to pull off. And I'm thinking, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go and I'm going to sit outside of Britannia Beach. I'm going to watch the water, the river there. Nice spring day. I don't know what the temperature was yesterday, but it was nice and warm, very mild, very, very pleasant, sunny spring day yesterday. So I get over to Britannia Beach, and guess what, Nick? I can't find a parking spot.
This is what's wrong. There's this week there's been riots in Montreal about the curfew, and the longer that this goes on, I've been saying this for a couple of weeks now, the longer that this goes on, the worse this kind of thing is going to get. You're going to see people begin to throw off this yoke because they want their lives back. They've had enough of this. Obviously, the world isn't coming to an end, no matter what the media and no matter what the government tells us. And it's just frustrating when you watch these people who work so hard, for years in businesses, to watch them go down the drain. And people are getting to the point saying, no, I don't think I will not go quietly into the night like a sheep being led to the slaughter. I am going to do whatever I can to keep my business afloat because it's the only way I have of providing for my family. Now, they may not word it exactly like that, but that certainly is exactly the effect, isn't it?
It sure is.
People don't want government regulating every aspect of their lives, and they don't need the boss to be looking over their shoulder at everywhere they go and the things they do, and tut-tut at them if they're not, or worse, if they're not falling in the line, doing things that the government says we shouldn't be doing. Because, you can't, there's some of the things we'll get into tonight. One topic we'll get into tonight is, if the vaccines cannot keep us safe from COVID, why are we bothering? And before the listener thinks I'm nuts, that's directly from our Prime Minister who said that. So what do you mean it can't keep us safe? Isn't that the whole point? Anyway, I don't want to give away that thunder yet, but I can understand people's frustrations. I share it.
Yeah, no, forget about not wanting to give it away. Let's talk about that, because we started off. I didn't plan to talk right off the bat about the lockdown and everything, and my big concern, and to the degree that I really ought to be concerned about it, is, Nick, that I'm always worried when politicians do stuff that's so egregious that it brings the very rule of law into disrepute. And I think that's what's happening here. And worse than that, it's always, always, always bad when a population starts to disrespect the law so much that they ridicule it and they simply don't abide by it. Because in a free society, as you know, we depend on respect for the law in order to maintain law and order. Yes, we have police, we have laws, we have police, we have courts, we have a justice system, flawed though it may be, to enforce the law. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's people's willingness to subordinate themselves to the law and maintain a certain amount of order in society that allows us to function. And when you play the kind of games with rules that these guys have been doing, it doesn't matter whether their intentions are good or bad. The effect has been, quite frankly, devastating. I think now we're bordering on devastation with respect to this, and it's gotten to the point where people now are just ignoring the law, and the government has no way of enforcing it. So just think for a second of Britannia Beach yesterday, which is for our listeners is on the south shore of the Ottawa River. It's the river's.
It's up in the northwest corner of the city.
Right. So it's not exactly. I mean, during the summertime when it gets hot, it can get quite crowded there. But we're not in swimming weather yet. I mean, the fact is that we're still in spring runoff. The water is quite literally ice cold. Nobody's swimming, okay? But, there are a few hundred people just milling around, enjoying the sunshine in the park there and on the beach and in the bike paths, the hiking paths, etc. And I'm thinking to myself, the city of Ottawa does not have enough police officers and bylaw enforcement officers on their entire staff to be able to come down here and round all of these people up and take them to jail. That's just nonsense. It would never happen. Not that there's anybody suggesting that should happen. They couldn't even come down and give tickets to everybody. So the fact is that, we can't enforce all of these laws if people don't want to obey them. And that's where we're getting into trouble now. And as you said, in Montreal a couple of nights ago, where they've reimposed an 8 p.m. curfew, and heaven only knows why they think that's going to help anything, but they have a curfew, and people, there was an actual riot in Montreal.
Yeah. I saw some of the video out of that.
Yeah, so it's just, it's crazy. And now to add insult to injury, just to get back on track to what you were saying, Nick, is now we're hearing, and not just from the Prime Minister, I know he was talking this way, but from other public health officials, now we're hearing them start to say, don't plan on things getting back to normal once everybody is vaccinated. Now that is very troubling to me.
Well, that was what got us to go along with it in the first place. So the idea of these measures were temporary.
If we're all getting vaccinated because that's the way to put an end to the pandemic, okay, so we all get vaccinated. Let's assume we all get vaccinated. So what is the problem? Why would we not lift all of these restrictions? And what restrictions are these guys contemplating keeping in place and trying to enforce after everybody has been vaccinated? So that's very troubling, and there should be all kinds of red flags and alarm bells ringing here with respect to this.
Okay, well, let me give you what the Prime Minister actually said. This is part of a quote. This is taken from I don't want to read the whole paragraph is what I'm saying. I'll read the salient part. Vaccinations on their own are not enough to keep us safe. We need to engage in the right kinds of behaviors, do things that the Conservatives aren't always good at, like wearing masks, keeping distance, and obeying public health rules. The most onerous of that, to me, is that last line, obeying public health rules. Well, first of all, if the vaccines are not on their own good enough to keep us safe, why are we wasting our time with them? This is from the same organization that told us, I think it was 2 weeks ago, that a good chunk of these stupid little paper masks that people have been wearing carry graphene, and it's toxic. It gives you lung problems. So wearing a mask is worse than getting COVID. So it's not a wonder. There's a lot of these mixed messages out here. It's not a wonder there's what the government is calling vaccine hesitancy. How about vaccine rejection, where people have just said no? And they've canceled 10,000, I can't remember the jurisdiction, but 10,000 appointments for vaccinations. Their excuse was there wasn't enough vaccine. I don't think they had the people coming in to warrant having that many. And yet, from the public health officials we hear, we've never seen anything like this. Are you crazy? This isn't the bubonic plague. This isn't Ebola. This isn't the Spanish flu of 1914. And they all go, yeah, well, we don't want it to be. Well, guess what? Your wish is granted. It's not. This is a nasty bug, no doubt about it. Nobody wants it. I'm not saying anybody should get it. But overall, there's a 95 to 96% chance you will not only get it, if you do get it, you will survive. And it's not going to be, it's not going to have side effects that are going to be completely incapacitating. We're afraid of our own shadow is what it really boils down to, because the government has beat the drum of fear so thoroughly for so long that now people, it's a subconscious way of thinking. And that's what troubles me a lot about this.
And the fact that people are so afraid, it impels them to do crazy things to force other people to obey rules that otherwise they wouldn't do. In other words, if you see somebody walking in the grocery store and their mask is slipping, you wouldn't make a big deal of it. And I don't know if you recall a few weeks ago, we never talked about it, Nick, on our show, but there was a customer in a Canadian Tire, I believe it was in Vancouver, Canadian Tire being a store here in Canada, a popular store. They sell car parts and stuff like that, but also kitchenware and housewares and stuff and sporting goods. So there was a customer at Canadian Tire who I believe he did not want to wear a mask. And by the way, the law is that if you have a medical condition that makes it difficult for you to wear a mask, you are exempt from wearing a mask. So this guy was literally tackled and wrestled to the ground and then out the door by Canadian Tire staff. Now, something like that would never happen in the circumstances or in different circumstances. So when you're making people afraid, it's not just what you're doing to them in terms of instilling fear, but it's there's a certain number of people out there who use that fear as justification for their own aggressiveness and even violence, and for the reason that they believe that they're protecting themselves and people around them. So, be careful what you're wishing for, because what you're discovering is that human beings are not as nice and pleasant and friendly, and that includes Canadian human beings, as we like to think we are. Yeah.
Yeah. I look. You and I are on the same page. There was while you were talking, I was thinking of something, and that train left the station without me on it. But underneath it all, the veneer between civility and behaving like animals is not very thick. And when you begin